And we're live.
Week 4 is in the books, and if you're here for the Rashee Rice funeral, you're in the right place. This is Stat Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight. Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally piss boys. You're right.
Good evening.
That intro always brings a smile on my face.
Yeah, I mean, Pete denied my request to have Rashee Rice in a coffin being carried by pallbearers with the faces of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry photoshopped onto the pallbearers as the thumbnail, but you can't stop me from mourning my Rashee Rice bags. That was like the only thing that was going well for me, really, this season. You know, like that was the lone bright spot so far through 4 weeks. So that was pretty devastating. Add that to the fact that I think I had like the literal nuts on 5 of 6 players in a dog bowl team with Rashee Rice left to go. I had 2 incredible lineups that one of them had Brandon Ayuk left to go. The other one had Rashee Rice left to go. After the morning games, I was pretty sure I was going to sweep the dog bowl and take 3 seats in a single week. I needed 6 points or so from Brandon Brandon Ayuk or Rashee Rice to get a seat, and couldn't get it done. Could not do it. So bit of a tilting week for me. I'm sure that if you're listening to this, it probably was a bit of a tilting week for you too, because you probably had a lot of Rashee Rice.
Because you're not a fucking donkey. If you're not a donkey, this season sucks. So far, it's chalk timber.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever had as many winning, like profitable slates in a row for a weekend of DFS and been as tilted as I've been. Just for a quick recap for those of you that are interested in hearing me bitch, the Sunday night game.
We're late to start chasing everyone. Let's talk about Zack's.
We were commiserating. Yeah, we were commiserating before the show, but had 50% Derrick Henry captain, couldn't sink the shot. Was just all over, like in and out of place the whole night. Couldn't get it to drain. Had like 5 different lineups in the dog bowl that all were very, very promising to ship. Had a lineup finish, in the top 100 or so of the Millie Maker that was reasonably live. Bunch of stuff that did not go my way this weekend. But you know what? All things considered, I'm doing okay. What about you, Drico?
I'm doing absolutely awful. Like really, really bad. My dogs got into a fight last week, and we had to amputate one of their ears yesterday. So I'm pretty sad right now.
Sounds like you're having a worse day than me. On all of those positive notes that we've shared, let's get into some charts.
Yeah. You think I'd know by now why I have to have it a little bit more zoomed in to fit the screen, but here we are. So we've got our QB volume, efficiency, and rushing chart. And so we've got volume, expected points from passing. We've got adjusted yards per attempt. And then the size of the bubble corresponds to rushing yards per game. And you can see the reference here, whereas this corresponds to 100 yards per game. Most of the guys are going to be smaller than that. But you can see Lamar gets pretty close. Jayden Daniels gets pretty close. So if your bubble is that big, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, the first thing that stands out to me is, I mean, we can talk about the rushing quarterbacks in a second, but the one that's like the clear outlier over here is Jordan Love. Now, granted, some of this is game script dependent.
It's all game script.
Yeah.
So the Packers have a neutral in games where Jordan Love is the QB. They're neutral in pass rate over expected. They just had a really, really high expected pass rate in week 4 as they're getting absolutely shellacked by the Vikings. So I think that's driving most of the that volume piece there.
Yeah, definitely agree. There's a couple other pieces here, though, that I think we want to peel back some layers on the onion.
Yeah. Jordan Love is super interesting.
One of the things that goes into adjusted yards per attempt is interceptions, and Jordan Love had a bunch of them on Sunday. So I think he's not going to.
I did like that Brett Favre tweeted him out.
I know.
That's my guy, and he played like Brett Favre.
It was so good. But yeah, he had a ton of interceptions, and interceptions are a really large penalty. An interception in the formula for adjusted yards per attempt is basically the same thing as 45 passing yards or two and change touchdowns. It's a big deal to throw an interception. It really hurts.
Right. It's so the adjusted yards per attempt is like it's a reweighting of the QB passer rating to make it more intuitive, and you don't get stuff like with passer rating, you get some quarterbacks who have weeks where they'd be better off just throwing it into the dirt every play. That doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't have that issue. And it's a lot more intuitive to think about it in yards per attempt. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't quite correspond to fantasy points, does it?
Yeah, and the reason I really wanted to point that out for Love is I don't think his interception rate is going to be near that high going forward. So really what I'm getting at, to say it quicker, is his adjusted yards per attempt on this chart will probably go up, even though his expected fantasy points will likely go down because they're not going to throw a million times a game. So I think he's still a pretty good positive regression candidate. There's just a lot of different moving parts here, and I think
so he has a really high ADOT. So his ADOT is 10.5. So his yards per attempt, assuming he doesn't turn into a pumpkin, his yards per attempt will be high this year. I think unless he's absolutely amazing, he is going to throw a decent amount of picks, just because it's really hard not to throw picks when your ADOT is 10.5. And if they maintain that neutral pass rate over expected. But what also comes with high ADOT is yardage and touchdowns, which is great for fantasy.
Yeah, so Jordan Love looking like a pretty incredible quarterback for fantasy right now. Like, if you had to pick right now, do you want Jordan Love or do you want CJ Stroud straight up rest of the season?
That's really hard. So I wasn't thinking about Stroud. Let me see. So the Texans are also neutral in pass rate over expected. His ADOT is 7.9. He is running probably. I mean, he's running okay on efficiency, which so he's at 7.8, where you have at Lamar 8.5, Jayden Daniels 8.6. So he's a little bit below, and Brock Purdy 9.4. So he's running a little bit low on efficiency, which for somebody who played so well last year is kind of shocking. So I think CJ Stroud is a pretty, like, this. I didn't come at this in a quantitative way, and more like he's at average, whereas I think his true where he should land is really high. So I think CJ Stroud is a pretty good regression candidate, actually.
Okay, but it does say a lot that it took a lot of thinking to determine who you want.
Well, yeah, I think Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is really interesting. I like I said, Brett Favre tweeting about him, like, he's kind of playing like the Brett Favre style. No, it's only 2 games. It's 2 games. So he's playing very aggressively, and they're at least their pass rate over expected is neutral, which in this new NFL that's actually high. So like that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited about Love. He also gets an incredible matchup against the Rams this week.
Oh baby.
And I think the teams, the matchup from both sides meshes really well, because what the Rams would love to do is give Kyren Williams a bunch of opportunities because he's the only thing they feel good about in their offense right now. And the Packers have not been great against the run. And then you've got the Packers who would love to, just score at will, and the Rams defense is happy to let you do that either through the air or on the ground. I think that, in a neutral game script, like you've said, the Packers are going to remain balanced. So it's a good spot for pretty much a piece on the Packers, I would say.
It sounds like we should expect the Packers to win by like do you know, I don't know if you have odds or anything like or like the sides or anything like that, but it sounds like they should score a lot of points, and you kind of like you look for that to come through the passing, with the potential that if they go up a lot, they are probably pretty happy to establish it.
Yeah, it looks like right now the line is set at 48 total points, but let me just check another source to verify that.
Packers favored by 3.5, which that's not too big of a spread, so that projects as like competitive.
Yeah, should be a good game. Okay, moving on to other quarterbacks on the chart. Close to Jordan Love is Joe Burrow, who is moving in a positive direction on the chart after having both of his weapons back now. I don't know how we could have seen this coming, that this quarterback would improve after getting, his.
When you say it like that, me feeling happy that I was like, oh yeah, Joe Burrow is a positive regression candidate. Me feeling happy about that, is like, oh, maybe that it was kind of predictable.
No, it was a good call. I think there were people that were a little worried about Joe Burrow.
Right. The vibes were at least a little negative.
Yeah, I think the vibes are still bad in Cleveland, Cincinnati. They need to win, and they're in an interesting game this week against the Ravens, where we definitely could see some points. I believe that one's got a pretty high total as well. I want to say that one is 50. So Burrow, I think they're gonna still be passing quite a bit. And so I really like this spot for him this week. I think it's
this is an incredible spot for Burrow, where like he's playing really well. To me, he's playing really well. He's ran a little bit low on touchdowns, but they have what you call it. They've been high on the pass rate over expected. It looks like Chase has hit his stride. T. Higgins is back. And the Ravens are actually a pretty big pass funnel too. Like, I think that spot is really interesting. Like one thing that sort of mitigated Burrow's kind of like good day against the Panthers is that they were negative in pass rate over expected against the Panthers, and I think they were just favorited, and so they ran the ball. They won by 10 points. But the Ravens are a big pass funnel, so if you have somebody who's playing well, weapons hitting their stride, and they should throw a lot, I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, that game against Carolina could have completely gone a different direction too. I don't know if you got to watch that one, but watch
the game.
Really, it looked to me like the Bengals were kind of on the ropes, and then Jamar Chase had one of the best individual effort plays I saw on the whole week. Just breaking tackles, like run. It was like the classic kind of like Debo play where it's like, oh no, Debo has the ball and he's in the secondary. Like, I guess no one can tackle him now. It was like one
right. He's in full stride. Uh-oh.
Yeah,
it is crazy that you forget that he can do that.
Yeah, no,
like he has this open field ability, or when he hits full stride, that he's unstoppable like that. It like for somebody who's such a good deep ball receiver that also have that in his bag is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a good reminder why we were drafting this guy where we drafted. Right. He can just go and do stuff like that. So we haven't even seen like an actual Jamar Chase eruption game yet. Wouldn't surprise me at all if this is the week where you get that.
Right. I completely agree. I think it's super interesting.
You know what is here's some alpha for anyone drafting the dog bowl right now. You can get Joe Burrow in the 5th round pretty consistently. I've seen him go in the 6th a couple times
Oh
too.
my god.
Yeah, like he goes
Oh,
after he goes after some absolutely ridiculous guys. Like there's no reason he should be going as late.
Do you think they're just giving the Ravens like too much respect after the primetime game? That's what it kind of feels like.
I don't know. I think it's partially like the bad vibes carrying over from the first couple weeks for Burrow. You know what's crazy though is Burrow's going to project as one of the best plays on the slate. Like,
okay, so get that value before the projections come out is what you're saying.
Burrow will probably be like, oh gosh, the 4th highest projected quarterback on the slate if I were going to guess. The only reason he's not higher is because he's on the slate with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jayden Daniels, who I guess we can move to now. I mean, I'm not the first one with this take, Drico, but I'll echo it. I mean, I've heard, Ben Gretsch and Sean Siegel, coming in pretty strong with this one, but Jayden Daniels as the QB1 rest of season, like, I don't even think it's a particularly hot take because the people who would, we would have anticipated competing with him for QB1 are on teams like the Bills who are truly not interested in passing the ball. That what Josh Allen is doing is extended handoffs. Like there's no real passing attempts happening for the Bills. There's the occasional one that's downfield, but the vast majority of them are like these no ADOT anything. Like it's just dinking and dunking. And so they're also not throwing all that often. If you look at his expected fantasy points from passing, like there's not a ton of attempts happening. So Josh Allen's fantasy value.
This isn't the Josh Allen of the last couple of years.
No, this is what you're getting is really fancy Justin Fields, where you're not, and it's not even fair to call it really fancy Justin Fields because the passing production is coming entirely different. You know what? It's almost like Justin Fields of this year, not Justin Fields of years past, but with better rushing. So
right.
It's weird, man. I think it continues though too because it's kind of what we saw through the second half of last year. So the trend that
this is how they want to play, and honestly, with the receivers they have, it's kind of how they need to play.
Yeah. So that's why Josh Allen's not live for. Well, calling him not live for QB1.
Not live. He's not the favorite.
He's certainly not the favorite anymore. And then you get to Lamar Jackson, and the reason he's not the favorite to be QB1 is the Ravens do really enjoy running out their new shiny toy of Derrick Henry. And also, they finally, the year that I did not draft very much of this player, finally are deploying Justice Hill in a really effective role, much to my, chagrin here now that I don't have any of them. So you get two teams where their quarterbacks are good, but I'm not saying that Jackson or Allen are bad quarterbacks. They're both very good. They just aren't passing as much. And with the Bills, they're not passing deep at all. And so you just end up with these low attempts. That's why they're here in this, low expected fantasy points from passing. Where Jayden Daniels, they're actually passing a good bit. But the expected fantasy points from passing are a little low for Daniels, just, I think in part due to the really, really low ADOT stuff over the first couple weeks. So I guess that was a really long-winded way of getting to, do you think there's a chance for Jayden Daniels to move further right on the expected fantasy points from passing part of that axis of the chart here?
So to do that, to increase the volume or expected fantasy points, to increase that projection, they have to throw deep a lot more because he's getting the dropbacks, he's getting the attempts, and what's weird about Jayden Daniels is because he's a rusher, his time to throw is really high, and so he holds the ball similar to how somebody who it's kind of similar to peak Russell Wilson or QBs like that, where they hold the ball trying to make something happen, but then the ADOT is super low, and that's obviously the Cliff Kingsbury thing.
How does it compare to Jalen Hurts this year? Because I noticed that his time to throw is up pretty substantially this year, and that was even before he lost his primary receiving weapons.
So Jayden Daniels, his time to throw is 3.0.
Okay.
And which is 3 seconds is most of these guys are below.
Yeah,
3
that's
seconds.
high. That's quite high.
And then Hurts is his is 3.17.
Okay.
So Hurts is really high, and then Jayden Daniels is high too. And so guys who are mobile, you expect high numbers for them because you have those plays where they break out of the pocket and then they try to make something happen. And this is an average, so it's going to push that number up. But normally with that comes the down the field play. And you haven't been getting that with Jayden Daniels. I mean, it feels like what they should do because you have this quarterback who already kind of stresses the field horizontally because of his mobility. And then you have Terry McLaurin, who he's made most of his money being a good deep threat. It feels like what they should do, but I don't know if that's who the team identity is.
Yeah, I guess my thesis on it is there's no way that you cannot add more deep passing into this offense after seeing it work the way that it has with Daniels, and that was one of his strongest aspects as
Right.
in final season in college. That was one of the things that people were raving.
That's one of his tools.
Yeah, and so I have a hard time believing that. I mean, we already got word that he was asking Cliff Kingsbury and Terry McLaurin is asking
Right.
Kingsbury, like, please, sir, just one more deep pass. Like,
Right. I think I put that meme up. It's like, please, sir.
yes.
Like in Oliver Twist.
Yeah, I think that is the natural progression to me, and that's what, like,
Right.
just imagine if you drag that Jayden Daniels bubble even over to that median line, like. There's a reason why these guys with the huge rushing numbers, Jayden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, are all to the left of the median for expected fantasy points from passing. And it's because they're eating up a bunch of that with their rushing attempts, right? You just naturally are going to end up with less pass attempts. But I think that you could get Jayden Daniels increasing his ADOT enough to maybe approach the median there, which he would just be far and away the QB1 if that's the case.
Right.
And so,
I think that's a bull case. That's an upside scenario. But it is Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think we should expect that he's gonna go all of a sudden. Actually, you know what, guys? I think we should throw the ball down the field now.
yeah, I think I just want to.
It's not impossible. That's one of those things where if it broke that way, it's like, aw, shit.
Yeah, I'd rather just lean into the outcome where when I'm right and early to it, I'm just going to win all the money for a week or two, and then everyone else can catch up to me while I'm taking it to the bank, But I think I'm.
So are you playing that through Terry McLaurin then?
Yeah, I'm playing it through Terry McLaurin. I'm also just playing it with Naked Daniels. And then
okay. But it isn't Daniels kind of isn't his quality priced in? I haven't seen ADP.
I got him at pick 28 in a dog bowl just before we started the show. I promise you he will be a top 12 quarterback, top 12 ADP quarterback by projection when projection is out.
Right, yeah, easily. Easily.
Going away, so for him to go at the 2-3 turn like that, you're stealing, absolutely stealing. So he's a really good target right now. I don't know if people are worried about the Browns matchup or whatever. I don't think it matters all that much because I think if you get the upside case playing out, you're just going to win all the money. You're going to have a quarterback that's separating hugely from the field here.
I don't think it should be the primary focus, but I think there is some credence to if the Browns have this good pass rush, he has a high time to throw. His pressure to sack rate has been high. It hasn't mattered just because He's been playing. He's other than that, he's been playing well. The volume's been there and all that kind of stuff. But that is the type of team that, or type of defense that might be his kryptonite.
Now, do we know what's going on with the Myles Garrett injury? Is he going to miss this week?
I actually have no idea.
Because I believe he left with a foot injury. I'm looking here to see if I can find anything.
Yeah, I looked it up, but I spelled his name wrong. I got a baseball reporter.
Yeah, he's got injuries to both feet, strained Achilles, thigh strain.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't think we've seen anything yet this week. I mean, yeah, just a situation to monitor. If there's no Myles Garrett, like, I would take Jayden Daniels probably as high as 8th overall.
That makes sense.
In the Dog Bowl draft. And it's really just because we're starting to get to the point in the season when we know who the elite players are and then who the players are below that tier. It's starting to get more clear. We have more games, we have a larger sample. Right. And so it's like, all right, after Jayden Reed's off the board, like, all these wide receivers are pretty similar for a long time. All these running backs are pretty similar for a long time. So anyway, that was me hopping on the Jayden Daniels bull case bandwagon. Two other quarterbacks who I think you either want to get on the bandwagon or get out of the way is Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy. They've just perpetually been, for the first 4 weeks, they've been atop this chart as far as some of the most efficient by adjusted yards per attempt. And they've been above the median in expected fantasy points from passing. So I think this is just like, welcome to the new NFL. Like, it's the McShanascan system world, and we're all just living in it. Like, these guys are going, like, the Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy efficiency will continue until morale improves. Like, I just think,
right, it's here to stay. It's a it's a thing. It's not an outlier.
No, yeah, not at all. If you watched us last season, you know that I was like a chronic Brock Purdy hater. I'm fully capitulating. I'm on the Brock Purdy bandwagon. I'm here. The shirt's in the mail. I'm buying the jersey too.
So Sam Darnold being up here, I think it cements obviously Justin Jefferson is wide receiver 1. Does it cement him as the 101? I know we're not at the receiver chart, but it's an interesting
Yeah, I think when we get to the receiver chart, there's actually, for me, honestly, if we had to redraft right now, the 101 is the spot that I don't want to pick in, because I think there's like 5 very viable choices for the 101. And it's probably like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb.
Give me Justin Jefferson over, like, cleanly ahead of those guys.
Malik Nabers.
Still Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's reasonable. He's obviously incredible. He looks, just absolutely absurd. He's very, very good.
But then the other takeaway is, and this kind of is speaking to our bags, it makes Jordan Addison, like, insane. Like, just fucking insane as the wide receiver 2 in that offense. That's
he was great positive, this week back too.
Positive pass rate over expected. So you've got the volume. He's on the right side of the chart. And then you've got the efficiency from the quarterback. It doesn't matter how it comes. Like, getting that wide receiver 2 as cheaply as he has been. I'm not sure what his resurrection ADP is, but, like, think about, like, some of the best offenses and what the wide receiver 2 has been. Like, the discrepancy to what it was this season and what those historical prices have been is pretty large.
Here's a really gross one. Are you ready to? This is not quarterback related. We're fully off the rails, but Jordan Addison or Jalen Waddle, rest of season, you have to assume there's some probability of Tua, not coming back.
Oh, jeez. I like, it feels very vibesy. Like, I do prefer Jordan Addison, I think.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't think it's vibesy at all. I think it's the correct take. Like,
right. Yeah, just because the risk of bottoming out in that Dolphins offense is clearly pretty awful.
As we talk about the Dolphins offense, I realized that I did not put Snoop Huntley on here. Now, granted, he only had the one game with the Dolphins, so we're just getting one.
Nobody looks at the charts anyway. They just listen to the podcast.
Honestly, like Snoop Huntley may have broken the chart so bad that it was a good thing to not have him on there, because the rest of the chart would have been like truly unreadable. I mean, Bo Nix is already like making it a little. If Bo Nix,
so he was at 4.4 adjusted yards per attempt.
Okay.
So you're talking Will Levis bad. You're talking Deshaun Watson bad. But this is like with a minus 10% pass rate over expected. So they're hiding this guy as much as they can. 2.27 time to throw. 8.4 ADOT. So to me that kind of speaks to like maybe a just like an average backup, which isn't what we were promised we'd get from this type of offense.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Moving on to all right, I think we have to talk about Pat Mahomes. So we get the Rashee Rice injury. It sounded pretty much like it was season ending, but we're getting like some semblance, some shreds of hope today that it might not be season ending.
Where they haven't confirmed that it's an ACL, so we're like, right. Oh well, maybe it's not as bad. But some of the other tears can be really bad too.
Yeah, but even with that, we get 3 of the 4 games so far with Rashee Rice, and this is where Pat Mahomes is on the chart. Like, is this guy just fancy Kirk Cousins in the current iteration of the Chiefs offense? Like, is that what
I mean, that's certainly what the numbers suggest. That's where the efficiency is. Like, the volume has been like fine, not amazing. It's honestly it's really difficult and tricky to put your finger on, where like this like player who seemed like on a complete tear, like shoe in for Hall of Fame. He obviously still is. He keeps winning the Super Bowl. And then the fantasy stuff, even though I guess they brought in these weapons. Hollywood's injured. Rashee is injured now. Yeah. It just feels like the Chiefs from last year. It feels like the Chiefs from last year, from the regular season, where despite all the improvements they try to make, they're still going to be thrown to like absolute bombs. Like it got so bad where like people are like, Kareem Hunt was in there, and people were like, doesn't look that bad. Like it might just truly be like, outside of Mahomes, outside of the O-line, one of the least talented offenses.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people talking about, like we should have seen Pat Mahomes was so overpriced. We should have seen this coming. And like, as a person who was significantly underweight, Pat Mahomes, like under 4%, Pat Mahomes,
right.
Don't have a ton. Thought the price was a little high.
Right.
I mean, I think saying anything other than he could have finished as the QB1 squarely in his range of outcomes is just silly. Like,
right. Disagreeing with that take, because there was clearly like an outcome here where Xavier Worthy was better. I think him underperforming has been part of that story.
Because like let me paint this for you in a different light. So Tyreek Hill got traded in before the 2022 season. Do you know what Pat Mahomes' numbers were in 2022 without Tyreek Hill?
I don't remember. I think they were good though, right?
About 5,250 yards, 41 touchdowns.
That's pretty good.
QB1 overall. Absolute nuke. The guy was atomic. And so to say like, oh, the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes was never going to be good. He didn't have Tyreek Hill. He hadn't put up those numbers for years. Like, dude, it was 2 years ago. We saw 1 year of him having a year where he wasn't, the top 5 overall fantasy quarterbacks, or the 101 fantasy, or the first overall fantasy quarterback going away. Like, it is so disingenuous, intellectually dishonest. Like, or if you find yourself like you truly believe this, like, I want you to.
The weapon, the story I think has been that like the guys that they brought in this year that we were hoping would kind of like push things to a different, to the level it was before, have been disappointing. Because like Xavier Worthy, his targets per run through 4 weeks, 13%, 18%, 13%, 10%. Even ADOT adjusted, like that's not what we were hoping for. Hollywood's injured. And like we were hoping that would be a competent place in the offense, and the replacement was Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, I mean, the Chiefs 2022 wide receivers, get ready for this. Are you sitting down? The same year where Pat Mahomes threw for almost 5,300 yards, 41 touchdowns, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. That's who he was throwing to in 2022. So again, if you're saying, "Oh, there's no chance we should have seen this coming," that Mahomes
right, I'm more thinking about like a forward-looking, rather than like, I mean, the run out for the weapons has been. I'm more saying the run out for the weapons has been bad.
Yeah. I'm just tilting at people who
like there's scenarios where, hey, Xavier Worthy was like a first-round pick. Maybe he ends up really good, but there was scenarios where he was much better than this. There were scenarios where Hollywood Brown was healthy and contributing at least league average or above league average in a way that opens up everything else.
Yeah. Anyway, long and short of it, right now Pat Mahomes is fancy Kirk Cousins. I think there's room for that to change. I think that they could end up in a situation where they're just having to throw more. It's a long season. I don't know if this, barely eke out a victory on the back of a bunch of, Kareem Hunt carries is going to do the trick for them. So we'll see how it plays out here. But right now, I mean, he's not really just because of the name value, like he's not really usable in any fantasy formats right now, right? I mean, like if you got him in your home league, like you probably have a better option to stream on waivers a lot of weeks, So it's rough. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I think for our rest of season rankings over at Leg Up, we've got him like below Baker Mayfield right now. So,
and it's hard to argue with that. It's like you can't slam your fist on the table and say that's wrong.
Because look where Baker's at on the. Baker's been good. Baker's been awesome. Like Baker is one of the shortest time to throw quarterbacks in the league. Like he's been super efficient. I mean, I think the Baker numbers are real. Like, anyone else that you wanted to go over on this chart, or should we move on to running backs?
No. I think we covered quarterback pretty good there. So I'm moving to snaps and usage, zooming out. And so this is because a lot of fantasy value for running backs comes simply from being on the field. So that's what we're tracking here. We're tracking the percentage of the team's offensive snaps was a rush attempt at that player, what percentage of team snaps they were running a route, and we add those up together. Those are the fantasy useful snaps. We also look at pass blocking because it's helpful to see who's trusted to pass block for the quarterback, and then run blocking is here too, just to round out the picture. So we're seeing the true snap share.
Yeah, this chart a couple guys here where because this is through 4 weeks, we're not seeing some of the like little nuance that we've noticed in a single game where the tides might be turning. So I think it's definitely important for us to point out some things where
Right. This is the last week where we don't put a filter on it.
Right.
From next week on, and we'll get rid of week 1, and it'll be a 4-week rolling average.
Yep. But right now, some of the guys that I wanted to go over where some nuance is required to interpret this chart. Jonathan Taylor with the high ankle sprain. I mean, if he ends up missing, this is an enormous amount of snaps to vacate. So I think that you have to be interested in Trey Sermon as a really cheap option. You know, if Taylor misses, you probably get Sermon as like the chalk DFS play of the week. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, you would for sure.
Another guy who I think that, again, we have to kind of pay attention to what happened this week and not just what happened through the first 4 weeks. Zach Moss up here with an incredible usage role, getting tons of snaps.
Just on the JT thing, it looks like I'm not sure how many snaps Tyler Goodson's played, but it looks like he has gotten on the field. So if JT misses time, Tyler Goodson, super sneaky waiver pickup.
Okay. I do think Sermon would be the one that gets the majority of the volume. Useful.
Yeah. But like someone like Sermon, it's like sometimes those guys don't get the full role.
Right. And also Sermon
is a journeyman guy.
Yeah, he could be as bad as we've seen him be. And I mean, when you have guys with that little amount of talent relative to what other starting caliber NFL players, to be perfectly clear, Trey Sermon has more talent in his pinky for football than I do in my entire body 10 times over. But relative to other NFL running backs, Trey Sermon is not terribly talented. So a guy like that, it could be a fragile enough situation where Goodson ends up leading in snaps in this week. So there's a lot of fragility to it.
It's a 50-50.
50-50, absolutely.
So looks like in week 2, Goodson had 8 snaps, 2 snaps week 3, 1 snap week 4. So, but I mean that's with JT healthy. So even with even with JT healthy, they actually had found reasons to get this guy on the field. So not a priority, but definitely a sneak and definitely a $1 pickup I'll be doing.
That's a good call. Another one that I think we need to pay attention to what happened this week specifically and what it means for the usage going forward is Zach Moss, who's up here with an incredible role. But I think Chase Brown slappies can rejoice because I think the Chase Brown genie is out of the bottle. It seems like it's going to be difficult for the Bengals to keep rolling out Zach Moss as much as they are. And I'm not saying that his role will go away. I'm just saying, like, when you realize what you have in Chase Brown, which sometimes it does take these organizations, seeing it in a game to believe it. But now that they've seen it, I think they're going to have a hard time feeling really good watching Zach Moss do his thing when they know that they've got, the Lambo parked in the garage with Chase Brown.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So last week they split rush attempts, which that definitely feels like very sustainable. But what's most interesting is that Zach Moss, and this is a percentage of team total plays, was 28% routes, and then Chase Brown 17% routes. Whereas usually it was like Chase Brown would be like 40% of the rush attempts, something like that, and then a really low route attempt, but then like when he was running a route, he was getting the ball. So like super interesting that they were a lot closer on routes. Now, Zach Moss is still doing all the pass blocking. I think that's like notable. I think that's important. But that they're finding ways to more ways to get Chase Brown running routes is interesting for sure.
Yeah, the Zach Moss pass blocking stuff, I think definitely hurts Chase Brown in that, do you think that Chase Brown can really like get on the field in the 2-minute role? Like, or are they going to need to keep Zach Moss on the field there so that he can pass block? Because Zach Moss is more like their do everything guy, and Chase Brown is there. We like
that does seem like a real limitation.
Yeah. So we either need Chase Brown to develop as a pass blocker, or there's just a ceiling on his upside where he's never going to be able to usurp like a full massive role. But I think a big portion of the Chase Brown thesis is the incredible efficiency and explosiveness too. So that's the positive there. But just a note on the Zach Moss role here, it might be more fragile going forward now that we've seen the breakout from Chase Brown. Another guy who, so this is a really interesting one, Drico. This is like trying to get ahead of what I think would be logical coaching from, I think, a team that's sharp enough to get here. But Aaron Jones has been getting an absolutely insane amount of work, like the most work that Aaron Jones has had for his whole career, right? Like, how many touches did he have this last week? It was like over 30, right?
22 rush attempts. I'm not sure how many targets he got, but last week he was on the field for 80% of snap, or 81% of snaps, and 25 expected points, which that's a true workhorse role. Like you see, like that brings you up to Kyron levels.
Yeah, I don't think that can hold, right?
Right, like, he's 29.
Yeah, I would assume that has to scale down a little bit, but we haven't seen them. They're not doing that. But
he turns 30 in 2 months.
I gotta think that they either do it by choice or they're forced to do it. Not knock on wood, but I hope that Aaron Jones is able to stay healthy. But that's a lot of work to give a guy who's about to be 30 and also has had trouble holding up to larger workloads over his career.
Right, I agree. I think Ty Chandler did not play that much.
No.
Well, who can when the starter plays that much? But even over over this full year, he's got 9% useful snap share. Oh no, sorry, 24%. My Excel didn't load properly. 24% useful snap share over the full year. And I mean, over a 4-game sample, I'd rather use the 4-game than 1-game sample. So it doesn't seem unrealistic that can take up to 30 or 35%.
Yeah, so I would expect Aaron Jones's role to shrink a tiny bit, but I still think he is. I mean, he was a smash where you were getting him in best ball drafts. As long as he can stay healthy, like one of the better picks on the board.
He's already a good advance rate pick, right?
Oh yeah, he's smashing right now.
Even if you didn't get great production in the playoffs, he'd still like the help that he's given you to your advance rate.
Right.
Is probably still beneficial.
Yeah. There's a couple guys here where we've got workload concerns where they show up on this chart, as having a pretty good role, but there's starting to be at least a little bit of reason for concern. So Breece Hall is one where we saw Braylon Allen really, he got more carries than Breece in this game. And so I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Drico. It was a really...
So I'm going to sound like a jerk now. I was already worried in that, like, I thought that the Braylon Allen piece caps Breece's true RB1 like legendary season upside. I think I mentioned that either last week or the week before, but I certainly would not freak out about last week because he was still on the field for 68% of the snaps. He still had an expected points of 17.3. He either ran bad or played bad. So his yardage was way under. His touchdowns were way under expectation. Maybe credit to the Broncos. But I do think that the Braylon Allen stealing work, it's not going away. But the offense kind of does run through the backs. And so even at 65% of that, that's still a pretty strong role. I think your RB1 season is probably off the table, or without like something really dramatically changing there. But you're still going to get pretty strong production, I think, from Breece.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a silent killer in the top 6, though.
Ooh. I don't know if I'll go as far as silent killer. I'm definitely more to where you were, where, okay, I think there's actually cause for concern with the Braylon Allen usage.
Right. Well, by silent killer, I mean you took Breece Hall, which meant you didn't get Justin Jefferson. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Where, like, you're still going to get good scores from him, but you didn't get Justin Jefferson scores.
Yeah. I do think that, with the Jets and Broncos game, it's almost a throw out the tape game. For whatever reason, the rain really seemed to impact them. Like there were quite a bit of drops in that game, and it just looked like I don't know. Both teams looked terrible. I mean, the Broncos have kind of always looked terrible, but the Jets looked pretty atrocious as well. That one was hard to watch. So I don't want to overreact too much to it, but
right. You can't overreact to it. I agree with you. It's a throw at the tape game where, like, you know what? It's the NFL. Sometimes the defenses make plays. It doesn't mean Braylon Allen doesn't mean that Breece Hall isn't incredible. Braylon Allen also incredible. And I think people are like, oh, Braylon Allen making Breece Hall look so like, just because Braylon Allen isn't incredible doesn't mean that Breece Hall is bad now. Like, he's still very likely going to finish very highly on the efficiency pieces. His volume is still going to be solid, strong. I don't think you get the double-double, the double-digit expected points on the ground and double-digit expected points in the air, but it's still going to be pretty good.
Yeah, well said. Okay, another guy who has I'm starting to be concerned for this guy's role, and he has not been good so far this season, is Josh Jacobs. Now, for Josh Jacobs, you can say, oh, well, there were 2 games where he didn't have Jordan Love, so the defenses could really key on him. But one of his better games came in that first game without Jordan Love, where the Packers had designed a really well drawn up running game, and they were doing all this innovative stuff where they're doing like fake guard pulls and scheming,
exotic smash mouth.
Yeah, it truly was exotic smash mouth. And Jacobs had one of his best games from a pure box score, but it was really just like compiling. He wasn't terribly efficient in that game at all. This game, yes, he's super, terrible game script for him. So the rushing doesn't look great. He does have one of his better.
Actually, good game script for Josh Jacobs, unfortunately, for Josh Jacobs drafters, because he splits the carries with Emmanuel Wilson, but he's a pass blocker and route runner for the team. So in games where they have lots of carries, he's going to split the work almost down the middle with Wilson. So you need the high passing games for him to get to be on the field as much as he needs to be at his cost.
Yeah, I haven't looked into the passing efficient, the receiving efficiency numbers for Jacobs yet, but just from watching the game, he didn't look incredible in the receiving game. It was just like, this is a warm body out here doing the thing. He got 6 targets, so that's good. But yeah, lost 39.
He needs that's what he needs. So he needs those game scripts where he can draw 6 targets.
Yeah, but 39% of snaps for Emmanuel Wilson. And again, this was in a game script where they were passing a bunch, and we see that Josh Jacobs is the guy that's out there for the passing down. So this bodes pretty poorly for him. I would say.
Yeah. At the cost, you're not happy.
Just to disclose any bias that I might have,
right.
I did make a bet with Sam Sherman on rest of season fantasy points per game, Josh Jacobs versus Kyron Williams. And I'm considering letting Sam cash out. Our bet was for $100. Sam, I'll let you cash out for $99.99 right now. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, I'm concerned that we're already losing some work to Emmanuel Wilson here.
We did get a question here. Were we able to look more into ETN? We're looking powerfully into why he was down to just 51% snaps last week.
Well, he did have the shoulder injury, right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I thought that was kind of the driver of most of it.
Yeah, but I would assume it was the shoulder injury. So that's I would put most of it on that. I mean, I think another part of it is just the Jags stink. So,
right.
And they've told us they wanted to do this. Like last year, they said, "Oh, we really need someone to help take some of the load off ETN," and so I think down to 51% of snaps is probably lower than he'll be on average. And I think part of that is because of the injury. But I think that, if you take his snap rate historically for his career, it's going to be lower than his career snap rate this season. Now, they seem to be more comfortable with Tank this year.
Yeah, they do. But I've heard a little bit about Travis Etienne. I just thought he had the shoulder injury and then he returned. But sometimes sometimes the NFL teams they're not at full disclosure when they're telling us about this stuff.
Right.
But you're right. That thing that's like underreported, but had a bit bigger impact than we thought. And then Zack, I just want to make sure that we're getting true comments because I like when people comment and want to encourage that behavior. I know you had a note here about Swift.
Yeah, the DeAndre Swift. I mean, he got a ton of work and was finally efficient with it. I'm chalking it up more to an anomaly. I just don't think that.
To me, this is actually what we're getting here. Actually, this is who DeAndre Swift is. He just plays for the Bears now.
Yeah.
Like where like he's been driving people nuts with this his entire career. We're like bad run. And then one where he looks incredible. And you're probably getting more to bad runs because it's the Bears. Like the scheme doesn't work. But I think the idea that it doesn't feel like his snap share is going down.
Yeah, I'm looking up. I want to confirm this before I say it. But I want to say that his long run here that made up for a lot of
he had the big run.
Yeah, it was a 36-yard TD, and the hole was absolutely enormous. Like there was just nothing but green grass. Like it was a gaping hole. So we talk about like rush yards over expected. Now the rush yards over expected model is not going to say like, oh, he had 36 yards to go between here and the end zone. Yeah, we should expect 36 yards. But I mean, in the mental model, we could go ahead and call it like a nice 18 expected yards because it was an enormous hole. But I mean, yeah, he's doing the stuff that he's done at every stop of his career where he's a low success rate guy, but he can hit the home run. He's like blind Kenneth Walker,
Right.
So
that's pretty fair.
I guess against Carolina, like sure, you could do worse. But like, just know that it's squarely in his range to have like 14 carries for 21 yards, and no touchdowns. That's just
Right.
who he is.
Right.
Um,
Fully agreed.
okay, so the Joe Mixon role, right in the range of Josh Jacobs, Rachaad White, like pretty good roles that we're excited about. And so with Joe Mixon, if you were playing DFS this Sunday, I'm the late news about, is Joe Mixon in? Is he going to be out? Joe Mixon's ruled out. Cam Akers immediately becomes one of the best plays on the slate, projecting incredibly. It's news happening within less than an hour prior to lock, so the field did not adjust enough. Cam Akers came in pretty low owned for the value that he was. He was extremely cheap for the workload that he was going to be getting. And it couldn't have mattered any less because Cam Akers absolutely stinks out loud. And I kind of wish I definitely played a good chunk of Cam Akers on Sunday. I wish I had just stuck more strongly to my prior during this offseason when we saw the Cam Akers in preseason. I was getting people messaging me, asking me, why is it Cam Akers higher in the leg up best ball rankings? And I kept replying, because we just watched him like deke a bunch of insurance salesmen out here, in a third preseason game. Like, why do we care? And I should have stuck strongly to that prior because that was accurate. Cam Akers stinks. Basically,
this is a true committee too. We're at last game, so so Cam Akers of the useful snap share routes plus rush attempts. Cam Akers 32%. They're gonna Wale 32%. JJ Taylor 18%. Like, just became a true committee. So like I don't think Akers is even rosterable anymore, if I'm being honest.
He's not. Yeah, the value in this offense is in the consolidation. I mean, if there's anyone other than Joe Mixon that you're playing in an absolute pinch when you're like, oh my God, I need anyone, you would play Dare because he's the packaging back, right?
Right.
But that's only in PPR and only like the only situation.
True desperation.
I could see myself playing Dare is I'm in a managed league where the Texans are playing on Monday night, and I thought I was going to have Joe Mixon, and he's ruled out, and I go pick up Dare Gumawale and play him. So basically, just don't fall for the Akers trap anymore. The value in this backfield is in the consolidation of Joe Mixon, like being able to get a lot of the work. So I'm interested in Joe Mixon this week. It's against the Bills, so not the easiest matchup in the world, but I just think that if we do see him back and he's healthy and he gets all of this work, he's underpriced for the amount of work that he's going to get.
You're talking about Showdown?
No. He's on the main slate.
Oh, okay. Sorry, in my head you'd said Monday, so I was confused. Okay, main slate. That makes sense.
No, sorry. Yeah,
and then we finally have our explanation on Swift. He was angry during practice, so therefore that's why he took that completely blocked run to the house.
Yeah, have we considered that maybe DeAndre Swift should just be mad all the time?
Right.
Okay, want to move through. We went through a couple of these guys already who might lose some work, but man, Rachaad White. Is
buried?
Absolutely
White? Buried.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty high profile that Bucky Irving is the RB1 now for the Bucks, but I guess we should note it.
Yeah. Last one on this chart, then we can move on to the efficiency charts. Charbonnet's role with Kenneth Walker healthy. I mean, Kenneth Walker delivers an absolute incredible, welcome back performance last night. If you're playing on the short slate or Showdown and you did not have Kenneth Walker, you did not win any money. I mean, he had like the most classic Kenneth Walker goal line touch of all time, where the run he's not successful on the run. Does not hit the hole. The hole is it's not there.
Right.
And
the defensive end Hutchinson completely closes it, Not only does he close the hole, he pushes it back into Swift, and then Swift into Walker, and then Walker is like, "That's okay, I'll just go over here."
He's like, "This is what I wanted. This is what I want to do on every play." Like,
see, coach, I couldn't hit the hole. See.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker, true. Yeah, DeAndre Swift is absolutely diet Kenneth Walker, and I mean diet in like the most derogatory way I possibly could say it. Like, and I loved DeAndre Swift coming out as a prospect, man. I wish he was a better NFL player, but he and Kenneth Walker have the same issues where they just cannot read the hole for whatever reason. But Kenneth Walker delivers the explosive plays frequently enough that it's worth the headache. But man, Charbonnet,
he's so electric.
I mean, dude, Charbonnet looked great too, though. Like, I don't know if you saw, there was a really, really good run where it was well blocked. It was a good hole, one where DeAndre Swift would still probably be able to find it. But Charbonnet gets through, and then after contact just keeps driving, turns what probably should have been like a 6-yard gain into a 12-yard gain. Just like,
oh, baby.
I mean,
he drove his feet on contact.
He
you
did.
Just know the coach is showing that film, like, oh, he's slowing it down, like showing him chop those feet.
Look at this effort. But I mean, like, Charbonnet is the archetype of back that you just know that coaches love. Like, he's able to do all the stuff. He's big. He's running.
Right. I can call every play in my playbook when this guy is on the field, and I don't have to feel dumb.
Looking good in the passing game too. Like,
yeah, it does feel like the standalone role. So he got 8.6 expected points, and 26% useful kind of snap share between rush attempts and routes. And then the other piece as well is I think the biggest thing in his favor. So he had 16% pass block. So 16% of team plays he was a pass blocker, just 5% for Kenneth Walker. So it seems that they trust him as the pass blocker more. So he's like, discount Rachaad White. Or like, discount same quality by week 10 as Rachaad White. Same role, just much, much cheaper.
He's a much better rusher than Rachaad White too. And then I think rumors of Charbonnet's like athleticism, like poor athleticism, have been greatly exaggerated, because there were a couple plays I saw where, so they have him on this little outlet route, right? He comes out of the backfield. He's just sitting there. Geno progresses pretty quickly through the reads, gets to Charbonnet, checks it down. Charbonnet beats a guy to the sideline to get the first down. And like, it was a DB that he's beating, like he's not slow. Like,
he's not a plotter. So he's neutral. He's got 8 yards over expected per next gen stats. I mean, that feels pretty right to me as to who he is as a rusher, to be like pretty close to league average. But like we were the vibes felt like no, this guy is just a bum.
Right.
Like he's somebody who's league average at everything, and so like you're gonna get production from him.
Yeah, so he's a guy where you've got the small standalone role. If you're a 0 RB roster and you need to plug and play someone, you can. If you get a really negative game script, he's going to benefit substantially, because he's the guy that they want to use more on the passing down stuff and more for pass blocking. And then, of course, you have the incredible contingent upside, which we've already seen get realized with the Kenneth Walker injury, where Charbonnet just consolidates everything. It's we think Joe Mixon's a consolidator. No, Zack Charbonnet is the true consolidator, baby. He is the consolidator to end all consolidators. So anyway, the value of Charbonnet obviously decreases with Walker back, but it certainly doesn't go to 0. I still feel really good about having Charbonnet on a roster.
Yeah. I feel a lot better about 50% sharps than I did at the kickoff.
All right, let's go to the backups chart. I don't think I had any notes here. Oh, I guess we could talk about Hunter Lipke leading the Cowboys backfield in snaps.
So I think some of this is misleading, because obviously a lot of this is run blocking. He's the fullback.
It's legit. The gray is like mostly fullback. role.
Right. He's got honestly, he's got similar role to Samaje Perine, as a like actual ball carrier or target, and then he has the fullback role as well.
He's Cowboys Dare Agumbawale plus Carson Steele. So it's not great.
Right.
Honestly, what it is it's a thorn in the side for Rico Dowdle, which is probably just an indictment on Rico Dowdle that he can't earn more. But I think that what you're going to get from this backfield is mostly floor with not great ceiling this season. Just kind of looks like there's no one usable outside of Dowdle, and Dowdle is more of just like a floor play, which is fine for what you paid for him. You obviously were hoping for the ceiling, so I don't really think there's a path to the ceiling being realized through talent for Rico Dowdle after 4 weeks, because the Hunter Lipke snaps are a pretty major indictment of that, talent case for Rico Dowdle. So I think you're only out to Rico Dowdle being a smash is the Cowboys offense absolutely begins cooking, because Rico Dowdle does get the goal line stuff. He gets the short yardage stuff. And then they designed a screen for him inside the green zone or in the red zone, and he converts that into a touchdown. But I think you're
good to know.
Yeah, path for Rico Dowdle is Cowboys have to get a lot better, and they don't show signs of doing that. So maybe you got to wait for the Cowboys bye week again. Maybe they'll figure it out after a bye.
Yeah. Maybe they'll dial it up to CeeDee Lamb again, and that'll work the magic.
CeeDee Lamb needs to be on pace for 250 targets for that offense to be at all functional.
Right. And so we just had the snap chart, and now we're looking at expected points and efficiency. So the way I think about the snap chart is that it helps you see the underlying stuff. It doesn't always translate into expected points, but like over time it should. It's like the underlying. It's like it's almost like the peripheral stuff. Whereas this is like, okay, who actually did get the targets? Who actually did get the carries? And then you also have the bubble, which shows who's been efficient and who has not. Did you have any notes on this?
Yeah, for this one, we talked about a lot of these guys already.
Right.
I want to highlight one that we didn't mention here yet. And he kind of falls in the category of guys we're concerned might lose some work due to efficiency or some of the other, smaller stuff that we've noticed from a single game. I mean, look at the size of Najee Harris's bubble. He is right on that borderline between the 10 to 15 expected fantasy points and 15 to 20 expected fantasy points, right where Drico's mouse cursor is. So he's getting a ton of opportunity. The problem is he stinks out loud. So the Jaylen Warren thesis is actually looking pretty alive. You just need Jaylen Warren to get healthy. I mean, if Jaylen Warren is able to get the usage that Najee Harris is getting right now, which we already kind of saw signs of that beginning to trend prior to him, missing time due to injury, but he was already getting more snaps than Najee and getting more opportunities than Najee in the first half of the game that he ended up leaving. And I think that the team is realizing, this Najee experiment is done. I mean, Cordero Patterson was looking like the better back, which, yikes. So Najee, if you've got Najee and have any way to move him for anything in like a normal redraft league, do it now, because I don't think there's very much value there. Here's a question for you. Najee Harris is just higher volume Rico Dowdle, true or false?
Is that fair to Rico Dowdle?
Let's go to the other chart real quick. Look at Rico's efficiency. No, it's not fair to Rico Dowdle. Yeah, Rico Dowdle would be much more productive with the Najee Harris volume. It looks like he's right there next to Tajay Spears.
Right, yeah.
Rico Dowdle, same player. Who knew?
So Rico Dowdle, he's probably like NFL average efficiency, Whereas Najee is just true utter dog shit.
And that is, I mean, Rico
Efficiency.
Dowdle barely missed the cut last year for the rush yards over expected stuff. He was like 1 carry too light. But Pat Kerrane, working the backroom deals, was able to get the Rico Dowdle efficiency numbers and found that he was basically exactly break even. I think he was like minus single digit rush yards over expected last year on like 99 attempts or something like that. And so he seems pretty league average. Najee, definitely not league average. Other guys that we can see on this chart that are
I just want to point out something that I noticed. Breece Hall, he's looking like pretty inefficient.
Well, this game was really this last game. He looked not great as a rusher this last game. That was why I was a little concerned. Yeah, but like I believe so strongly in the talent thesis for Breece that I'm willing to just chalk it up this game. But yeah, like I don't want to just be biased and be like, oh well, that's my guy, so it doesn't matter. But like that, there's a reason why I came around to. I think you and I are pretty aligned now on how we feel about Breece as a player. Where I think last week you were a little more concerned than I was, and I've come around and I've seen the light, Drico.
Well, the only thing I want to point out is like I would expect Breece Hall to be like efficient over the course of the year.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I still wholeheartedly believe that he is the most talented back in the league. So I expect him to be fine. I just think Braylon Allen is also a top 5 most talented back in the league. So
that's
troubling for him.
Yeah. And I'm what you call it. I'm not I'm more talking about the efficiency piece, where like I think you should expect him to get 65% of like a pie that's smaller than the 65% is smaller, but the pie is probably pretty large. But the fact that he's been really inefficient, I think we should expect him to be efficient, and so for there to be much better Breece Hall days than we've been getting.
Yeah, well put. Going back to some of the guys that we think might have some fragility in their role going forward just due to poor efficiency. I mean, Zamir White, but he never really has had much of a role to begin with. You can see the size of his little bubble there. Josh Jacobs, who we already talked about, and Rachaad White, who we already talked about. So, bad season to have the last name as White and be an NFL running back. Doesn't seem great for those guys.
We spent time on running back.
I think we're good to move on here.
So this is our tight end utilization and efficiency chart. So we're focusing on the starters here, and because tight end it's such a team driven position, the team has to decide that yes, this guy is going to run most of the routes. We're not going to have a committee of tight ends, and then we're going to treat this guy like a down the field receiver. It's not just going to be short stuff. And so that's why we look at percentage of team dropbacks. That's why we look at ADOT, targets per run. And one thing that I thought was interesting, and Sam Sherman had a really funny tweet about it, whereas like unprecedented government aid to Travis Kelce drafters in the form of Rashee Rice injury, where like he actually had like Travis Kelce type usage last week.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I guess that is the lifeline you needed if you drafted Travis Kelce. I had
94% routes, 28% targets per run, 8.9 ADOT.
Man, it's so crazy to me that Rashee Rice was just able to fully cuck Travis Kelce though. Like,
right.
I don't know it says something. I'm not sure if it's saying more about how good Rashee Rice was or how diminished Travis Kelce is, compared to the former version of himself. the truth is probably somewhere in between. I think Rashee Rice is pretty good. I think Travis Kelce is probably a slightly diminished version of himself. But yeah, definitely a bailout for Kelce. I had one main note here on the tight end chart. I'm just going to read it as it's written here. So I tiered the tight ends out. It's Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, and that's in no particular order. Tier break. Kittle, Laporta, tier break. Dalton Kincaid, Dallas Goedert, tier break. 50 feet of shit, every other tight end. That's how it feels this year. I think we just so I don't know. Have you had a chance to read Stealing Signals yet? Because Gretsch had a really interesting piece.
No, I haven't.
So not to like just regurgitate Stealing Signals, but I thought this was so poignant and well thought through that I want to share a little bit of it. But it was explaining why tight end, for the whole landscape of tight end, is experiencing this major production decrease, and very contrary to what we were expecting based on the talent level of some of these tight ends that we have right now as pass catchers. And to really summarize something that is definitely worth the full read, it just comes down to the archetype of defender that is useful now in the NFL is different. So like for linebackers, historically you would have these larger bodied guys that were more geared towards run stopping, and then they would get assigned coverage on tight ends occasionally. And that was why that whole tight end mismatch thing existed, right? You had these tight ends who were much better athletes, much faster than these big bulky linebackers, and you're getting to run routes on these guys, and it was just an absolute personnel mismatch. Well, now the whole league has shifted to more of a passing league, and so you're getting these smaller, faster, much more competent in coverage linebackers, and it's making the tight end mismatch thing just not like Kyle Pitts 5-10 years ago probably would have been absolutely destroying the game. But now Kyle Pitts is slow. Like compared to the guys that are covering Kyle Pitts, like, yeah, this guy is nothing special. He's a sub athlete compared to these guys. So I think,
and also there's a difference between not to get too football-y, but there's a difference between a linebacker who's doing their 2-step, run first, then pass, to a linebacker who's like, okay, I got to win my coverage, and then we'll think about the run. Like, that makes a big, big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was really insightful. If you have not read Stealing Signals yet, or for whatever reason you're not subscribed to Stealing Signals, I would definitely recommend it. It was a very enlightening way to think about the trend that we're seeing across the league so far. But yeah, do you agree with those tight end tiers in general, Drico?
Yeah, seems pretty fair. I did like that last week. Laporta, he got back up to a 21% target per run. His ADOT was minus 1.3. So that feels a lot more encouraging than like his full season targets per run is like 9%. Like 20% is probably a lot closer to what we should expect over the full year. So that was encouraging, even if I don't think we got like an amazing game from Laporta, but still encouraging after like a pretty poor start. I saw somebody mention Brock Bowers with the quote unquote injuries. He had an 81% route share last week, but just a 14% targets per run. Somebody said that I think this was Sam Sherman again. That he was doing a lot of like chip off the line and then run a route. I do wonder if that was because Michael Mayer was out, and that's kind of the Michael Mayer thing. So hopefully Michael Mayer makes a business decision to play on when he hasn't done anything in the league yet.
Yeah, pretty funny. I was jamming Brock Bowers in last week. I was thinking, oh man, Michael Mayer out, Devontae Adams out, Brock Bowers is about to get 100% of snaps, like he's going to be feasting. It turns out Michael Mayer out might actually be a bad thing for Brock Bowers because they like using both tight ends and just having one of them be more of like an extra lineman. So, I'm not very worried about Brock Bowers at all. I think he's still, absolutely belongs in the tier 1 of tight ends. Very, very strong chance to be tight end 1 rest of the season. The guy who is here's some dog bowl and underdog BR.
Go ahead, actually.
The guy who's the most mispriced by like 2 rounds right now is Trey McBride. He just has the questionable tag because of the concussion. People are like, oh, I don't know. But it's against the 49ers. It's going to be a high game total. Like the 49ers and Cardinals, when they've played in recent years, have been a very fun game. So I'd be jamming Trey McBride before he gets cleared from concussion protocol and before projections come out. Right now I just did my rankings for him just really based on, going through production and everything and not making any projections based rankings, just purely like looking at what's happened so far this season and utilization, things like that. And I have McBride in the first round for this week for a dog bowl. So 12-man drafts. And you can get him at like the 2-3 turn right now. So he feels like a pretty strong click currently.
That you don't have to talk me into Trey McBride. What happened with Dalton? I'm seeing that Dalton Kincaid, so he had just a 59% route share last week. He did have a 32% targets per run, so like low routes, but the routes he was running, he was getting targeted a high amount. I didn't see anything about an injury for him or anything like that. That doesn't feel great.
Nope, it's not. It's it's part of why I was concerned about him because they really seem to want to use both him and Knox. The stuff that is bullish for Kincaid is that really high targets per route run. When he is on the field, they're doing the schemed Dalton Kincaid stuff. They run through the air to Dalton Kincaid often, and in fact, this week would be a week where I would be really into it because they're playing against the Texans, who have a really, really strong defensive line, like pretty good against the run. They have Khalil Shakir on the injury report currently, and it sounds like he'll probably be able to play, but Khalil Shakir is the number 1 target earner outside of Dalton Kincaid on this offense. So I'm thinking if Shakir is at all banged up, and it's going to be harder for them to run than usual than against an average opponent, and we know that they want to run, I think you could get a lot of this Dalton Kincaid run through the air nonsense that they want to do. And even if he's only getting this 59% of snaps, tight end is so bad that it's probably still pretty good.
Do you think that some of the snap stuff there is because he's not much of a blocker?
Yeah.
And then as they focus on the run, like, it's like, okay, Dalton Kincaid, sorry, but this isn't your play.
And this is one thing that Karain has noted in his research on tight ends is that what you actually want for the best fantasy outcomes for tight ends is you want guys that are really good blockers as well. Right. And they don't have to be elite blockers, but they need to be competent blockers to where they're not losing snaps for it. Because just like coaches want running backs that can do everything, so you're not tipping your hand based on what running back is in the game, coaches also want tight ends that can do everything. So again, you're not tipping your hand by who's in the game. Because right now when Dalton Kincaid comes in the game, teams know they're probably throwing to this guy, right? Like it's obvious. But when you get a tight end like Jake Ferguson, for example, who is a pretty decent blocker, he's on the field a lot, he has an extremely high play action participation rate, which is a metric that Karain coined paper. And that is how you really manufacture touchdowns at the tight end position, is this play action participation rate. You basically want a guy who's going to be out there when the team is running all of their play action plays, because tight ends can get a disproportionate amount of their touchdowns coming from those plays. When you're in close on the goal line and you run that play action, all of a sudden the tight end has a chance for a really high value.
It's a linebacker. If they're covered by a linebacker, they have a bigger run fit responsibility than a defensive back. So they have to honor that play action a lot more.
Yeah. So overall, that's pretty concerning for Dalton Kincaid. But the good news for Dalton Kincaid is almost every other tight end sucks out loud. So it doesn't matter that he's failing on his thesis as well. He's still, I honestly,
you still prefer Dalton Kincaid to Mark Andrews right now.
Yeah, like going away, and you prefer him to Kyle Pitts. And like, I definitely prefer George Kittle to Dalton Kincaid, but like in hindsight, like if I was allowed to trade all my Kyle Pitts shares for Dalton Kincaid, I'd do it in a heartbeat. You know, like I'm very glad that I kind of split exposure evenly between those guys. But man, the tight end position as a whole is just really ugly. The only other guy that I really wanted to talk about at tight end is actually on the next chart. Unless you
I do want to mention, so Colt Kmet last week up to 77% at route share, and so he's gonna move up into kind of this section of the chart, and so the silliness with Gerald Everett, I think that's done now.
Yeah, the only problem is that Shane Waldron refuses to call pass plays now. The Bears had, I believe it was a league low pass attempts this last week, so that's great. You love to see that. You know, you spent the 101 on a generational quarterback talent who flashed that he could be really good, you know, in the previous week, and then you go out and you barely throw it all, and you almost lose a game that you should have been winning handily. But yeah, who knows? So the problem with all the Bears pass catchers, if you're having to choose when to start them, is that you're relying on Shane Waldron to let them pass and do intelligent things. And then even when they are passing, the scheme is so dog shit that they're having to it's requiring tremendous individual talent from these players to over.
Well, if you get a week though, like we had, I think it was week 3, where you got the 50 drop back week. Then that's how you get the Colt Kmet smash,
right?
And he's alive for that now in a way that he wasn't before.
Yes, 100%. Kmet. I'm not trying to bury Kmet. I'm more so just wanting to throw a little cold water on the Bears. Yeah, that the Bears are just. It makes it really difficult to know when to start the guy. So like in any kind of managed league, I'm just like throwing up my hands having to start any Bears. It's really tough. Because here's the difference. In a managed league, I really care about like the floor and the median outcome, right? And so where the Bears can let the bottom totally drop out on me, where number one, they could just have 22 pass attempts in a game. And number two, even if they do have 50 pass attempts, there's a chance the scheme was just so piss poor that I actually still don't get home. Now we saw it get home in week 3, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's such a poorly designed offense that you could have 50 attempts and not get home. And so that's really painful for a managed league. In a GPP where it's like, whatever, I'm losing this money anyway when I enter a GPP, and then when I get the hit, I win all the money. I think the Bears will probably consistently be relatively low owned as a team to stack.
Right. So like Dalton Kincaid, I'm just looking at Underdog. So Dalton Kincaid, tight end 2, 21.2 ADP. And then you have Colt Kmet at 35, tight end 7. Like I'm picking on Dalton Kincaid there, but that can certainly hit in a way that you want it to, and you can certainly win with that.
The ceiling is in a single week. Don't you think the ceiling for Colt Kmet is higher than Dalton Kincaid?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
so depressing, man. Oh my god.
I actually have decent Colt Kmet bags, so I'm not depressed by that at all.
No. I mean, I do as well. It's just depressing that like he could be so good. Like I'm depressed that Shane Waldron has a job. That's what I'm depressed about.
It is certainly disappointing.
I'm pretty sure a 12-year-old with a Madden, a 12-year-old who's reasonably experienced at Madden with an Xbox controller probably outcalls Shane Waldron.
Right. So you had mentioned that there was a tight end on the backup chart here. I think was it Erick All?
It is Erick All. So this is the first week where we saw Gesicki get out targeted by him. It was like closer to Gesicki gets some and Erick All gets some. This week Erick All out targets him. Now to be fair to Gesicki, if you watched every snap of this game, there was a play. They're on the goal line. They have Jamar Chase, and Burrow just only has eyes for Chase on this play. And it's a route that takes like a little bit of time to develop. I honestly, I'm not a ball knower to this level, but I would think from watching this play that it's the kind of thing where you probably could have made a read prior to locking onto Chase, because the Gesicki route is just like a quick slant. There's a quick slant, and he beat his man. He's wide open in the end zone. It's just an easy pitch and catch. Like, it's a touchdown 95% of the time Burrow throws it. And the other 5% of the time it's because Gesicki drops it, right? But he doesn't see it at all. And it's on the same side of the field as Chase. It was really baffling to me how it got missed. But I would just guess he's just locked onto Chase. But to my untrained eye, I would think that's the kind of thing where you're already looking at that side of the field, look at the quick slant and see if that's there and take the free touchdown on the times when it is. But then he holds onto the ball, throws it to Chase.
Right. It sounds like you would have won some money if Gesicki had it caught.
No, I didn't even have Gesicki playing.
I'm just teasing. I do think if you're looking at Gesicki's like overall, so like over the first 4 weeks, he's at 51% route share, which I guess in this new tight end landscape maybe plays it when you combine it with a 25% targets per route run, 7.6 ADOT. It's not great, but it's probably startable in desperation situations. The thing that I have a lot of hesitations about with Erick All is, so you have this incredible targets per run of 40%. However, it's on so that's 40% last week, and I'll use the full season. And the last week doesn't change this. It's on 30% route rate, and then the ADOT is like 2.2. Like it's just like when he's on the field, they seem to like doing low to ADOT throws to Erick All, but he's not on the field that much. So like to me, like it's incredible for him that he's like this late rookie coming off the ACL tear that he's doing this. That's incredible, but the targets that you're getting here don't seem that valuable. Like you need to add a completely new element to that role for Erick All to be playable to me.
Yeah, that's I agree with that analysis. And honestly, I would think that for both of these guys, as we have T. Higgins, more and more back off of his injury.
Right. And then you see 6% target per run for Gesicki last week. Maybe the two receivers being full go had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and I think with Chase Brown emerging more, I think the Chase Brown breakout takes away some there as well. So I think both of these tight ends become pretty much entirely uninteresting for fantasy, except on really short slate and showdown type stuff. But like Erick All, if he is a really low price guy on a Bengals showdown slate in the future, probably an elite play. And he's a good blocker. If you watch the game, the announcers could not stop raving about what a massive hole Erick All opened up on a running play. They're like, Erick All absolutely blew the hole wide open this play. So maybe you get.
I'm really happy that he made that great block.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you get Erick All as one of these high paper tight ends, high play action participation as the season goes on, so he can scam some be useful on short slate stuff. All right, that's enough of this putrid fantasy position. Let's get to wide receiver.
So we've got wide receiver opportunity versus fantasy points. So we've got weighted targets per run, which is targets per run, but it weighs down the field targets more heavily than short ADOT stuff. And then we plot that against fantasy points, and the dots are color coded to route share. And we split this chart up into three. these are just the guys between 85% and 100% route share.
Yep. Okay, so I want to go back to a conversation we had earlier. We talked about,
Oh, you remember that?
we talked about who the wide receiver one was, and you were firmly Justin Jefferson over everyone. So
Yeah.
there's 5 guys that I think can make a case to be the wide receiver one. It's Justin Jefferson, who I think is the odds-on favorite right now. It's Nico Collins. It's Malik Nabers. It's Jamar Chase, who's over here at the 40% weighted targets per route run, which I think is going to change as we progress.
Right.
And then it's the guy on the next chart of CeeDee Lamb, who's got a slightly lower routes run rate currently, just because of some weird game script stuff where the Cowboys were either blowing out or being blown out. What a funny team, man. Just kick the shit out of the shitty teams and get absolutely embarrassed by even the borderline competent teams. What a pathetic organization. But anyway, these wide receivers, this Malik Nabers, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, I mean, looking absolutely incredible. The Malik Nabers spot is really interesting to me, actually, because he's coming off the concussion, but it's a longer week. So typically what we've seen in this new concussion protocol era is you miss a week. If you get concussed, you miss a week, typically. But it's the longer week, so he's got 10 days. So, you don't know how bad a concussion is. It's one of those injuries where you truly cannot tell by looking at the hit. Like, it's very deceptive. Stuff that looks pretty minor can actually be a very serious concussion, and vice versa. So there's no way to judge how bad the concussion was. Didn't look that bad to me, but again, we don't know. But if Malik Nabers, the crazy thing is, and really this is the most applicable to like Dog Bowl and Battle Royale drafts, where he's being drafted right now, and you have to decide, is he playing or is he not playing, right? If he's not playing, then because you get the swap on Underdog, and I'm framing this more through Dog Bowl because that's the majority of what I do. I don't play the 6-person Battle Royale drafts on Underdog. I only do the 12-man or the short slate stuff. But in the 12-man drafts, he's probably a pretty good pick at the end of the 4th round, where you're really not sacrificing a ton if you lose him, if he's ruled out and you have to swap to someone. So I think 4th round is reasonable-ish for him right now. But then you have to build in the probability that he plays and where he would go if he plays. And if he plays, he's probably a top 5 pick this week. So it's really interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Drico. Do you think you just YOLO it on Malik Nabers and just start ripping it in on him?
So you're saying he's a 4th round pick in 12-man drafts.
He doesn't go in the 4th round though right now. He goes earlier than that. So it's hard. You're
having
a
3rd round pick as things stand.
It's like 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
Let me pull it up.
And so you're having to take him in the first 36 picks. So like that's where like the players are still really going to project really, really well. And so if he's out, then you late swap, but it's somebody who projects much, much worse than the 37th best projection. Am I framing that correctly?
Yeah, and I guess I would say, as I think through it out loud here, yeah, his ADP is 14.2 right now, so he's going high. He's you gotta to take Malik Nabers, you're passing on Stephon Diggs, you're passing on George Kittle, passing on Kenneth Walker, you're passing on Jayden Daniels, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride.
So then it's really a risk tolerance thing. So when you're talking about the Dog Bowl is literally winners take all, right?
Yeah, it's top
three, you win the slate, or you kick rocks.
Right.
And so it's almost like the top 20% of outcomes are the only thing that mattered there. So I think, to me, that honestly seems fine. And it's more of a risk tolerance thing. I see some like sort of analysis here where the average days missed from a concussion is like 8 days, and you got 10 days here. To me that's like a true risk tolerance thing where like you can jam it, and then you get it in real good, or like then you're late swapping and like you just drafted a bunch of dead dog bowl teams. Like I think it's acceptable way to play. Just understand the risk tolerance.
Yeah, I think as I think through it a little bit more, one thing that I want to consider is people are, man, I didn't draft a ton of dog bowls last year before like projections are out. I'd sprinkle a few in just to kind of like get the lay of the land. These last 2 weeks, I've been drafting more before projections have come out, because last week I did it a lot because I had a couple decent reads that I wanted to get ahead of the market on. And I was right on the, like with George Kittle, he screamed up a bunch after he got ruled in, right? Debo Samuel. There were a couple spots like that. And so doing them last week kind of illuminated to me how bad the market is without projections. Like there's people that don't know what the fuck they're doing, respectfully. And they're just doing stuff that doesn't make any sense in any format. There's no justification for players being selected where they're going. And so I think drafting before projections are out is actually pretty good. And so because of that, you end up with players going undrafted, like Josh Downs, for example, goes undrafted sometimes. And he's one where if I have to swap from Malik Nabers to Josh Downs, of course I'm losing projection. But later in the week, Josh Downs will be drafted 100% of the time because he's going to project pretty good. You know, like other guys that like right now go undrafted or go really late, like Romeo Doubs. Like, yeah, he's definitely the less sexy version, you know, or less sexy option between him and Dontayvion Wicks, but he shouldn't go undrafted, but he does right now. And so it's like getting to swap into Romeo Doubs in the Packers offense where there's no Christian Watson. And so, you know, you're going to have this condensed, it's these three guys now, finally. It's not like going to be this rotational thing against a really good matchup for the Rams, like against the Rams. Like, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good swap. So you have better swap options earlier in the week. Keenan Allen, you know, undrafted against Carolina. And we just talked about like how the Bears, yeah, they're a pain in the ass to start in a managed league, but where you, like you just said, you only care about the ceiling. So Keenan Allen against Carolina, like, could be a pretty interesting spot, and you can just swap for free to that. So I think the way to play it is if you're willing to be risk on, you hit the Malik Nabers stuff kind of aggressive right now, maybe not like whole hog into it because you might get news that he's like doubtful or like really questionable in the middle of the week, and then you can truly get him for free. But I think just to like stave off the outcomes where, you know, it's very likely he plays. He's going to clear concussion protocol. He's going to play, and then his price just rockets up even more than it already is.
Right.
Like,
Every time he passes a new step in the process, the protocol, he's going to go up. Like if he practices on Friday, he's just going to go top 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for helping me talk that out. I just moved him up a bunch in my rank. Okay. Oh, this was a guy that I think is really interesting, but Rashid Shaheed. Man, he was a guy during the offseason we talked about a lot when we were doing the leg up rankings, that he pops like a guy that should be going much higher. He looks like the real deal, but there's just the concern about the role. Like, is he a bit player? Is he just this deep ball merchant? You know, he's not.
Right.
Rashid Shaheed is a fully functional NFL receiver, can run all the routes, can win at all depths, can do it all, and is out targeting Chris Olave. So
he had a 30% targets per run last week.
Yeah. And that maybe that's partially because of the Olave like late week hamstring strain. If you ask me, it might be this is going to be a really hot take, and I almost hate myself for giving it because I really like Chris Olave. I think he's really good. I think Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave are 1A, 1B in this offense.
And I think they have like different roles where like it seems like Shaheed is more often the deep guy, whereas like when they need to move the chains, they're trying to Olave. If it's third down, the ball is going to Olave.
There was a lot of chain moving stuff here, and it's also, this was not the first week where Shaheed got some like shorter stuff and intermediate stuff. He got it earlier in the season as well. Like I was noticing when watching the Saints. Now, granted, they hadn't passed a ton, but like it was clear that he was not only exclusively a deep ball merchant.
So he got 11 targets this week, versus 5, 4, and 5, and now that's a big increase in dropbacks. But like you're saying, I think are you saying that Shaheed is like a legitimate target at receiver, or like I don't think you're trying to bury Olave. That's where I'm having a negative reaction to, like the 1A 1B. It's like, no, I think Olave is better. However, Shaheed is clearly very important to the offense. Where like, so he's like week 1 he was 73% route rate, and then since then, if you average the 2 weeks, it's 93%. Yeah, if you average the targets per run over the last 3 weeks, it's 25%. So like, those are you take those numbers for like I don't know, top 3 rounds.
Yeah, I'm just saying Rashid Shaheed probably like in resurrection, and I've done 0 resurrection, so I don't know where he's going. Probably should go in the top 5 rounds.
Right. As things stand, that he certainly should.
And I mean, I see more reason for this to continue than for the trend to break, because this is what we were looking at all offseason of like, this guy seems really good. Like, maybe he's just really good. And then through 4 games, we're like, this guy seems really good. And he's doing more than just the bit role that we'd seen him pigeonholed in the past by a shitty, incompetent offensive coordinator. So maybe he's just good now that he has a competent offensive coordinator. Now, granted, his offensive coordinator is still a little bit boomer. They're just running the ball too much. But he's designing a functional offense. Granted, they run too much, but they're at least using motion and play action, like someone who knows how the game is played. So anyway, nothing negative about Chris Olave, just very bullish about Rashid Shaheed. And man, I wish this offense threw more. I wish that they threw more.
Right.
Okay, can I hit you with a really gross one?
Okay.
What if I told you that I want to play Courtland Sutton this week, and I think it's a good positive regression spot for him?
Are you suggesting that some vomit stacks for Bo Nix in week 5 is a good idea?
I think that we might be able to go back and play the tape from, was it week 1 that I said?
It was week 1. I think we were both talking about it, and you pointed at week 5. I was like, oh, that might be the week you can play Bo Nix.
Now, hang on. Because I need to look this up. 2023 NFL schedule week 5. Because I swear to God, I'm pretty sure this was the same. I think week 5 was also the week that the Texans. No.
When you called that when you called the CJ Stroud. That's what.
Yeah, when Utica went with the Texans triple stack to go absolutely thermonuclear and ship the Millie. Yeah, no, it was not week 5 last year. Maybe it was week 4. Anyway, yeah, I'm. God, I don't know if I want to. I mean, that's such a hard standard to live up to, you know, because I just absolutely smashed it so hard last year. But I guess, you know, it was week 4 last year. So week 5 this year, Broncos vomit stacks are the 2023 week 4 Texans vomit stacks. The other thing though is I don't think that it's going to be way different than the way that CJ Stroud got there, where it's like everyone eats. I think it's hyper concentrated to Courtland Sutton, which is why I like it. And I think you have the rushing upside of Bo Nix. And you're against a Raiders team where, man, you want to talk about a team where the vibes have swung wildly in the first 4 weeks of the season. Like, the vibes went from bad to good. Like, remember when the Raiders upset the Ravens, how good the vibes were? And then
vibes were incredible.
The vibes are like bottom of the basement right now. The vibes seem bad for the Raiders, and they're going against the Broncos. who might be feeling their oats a little bit after beating the Jets. I mean, maybe this is a spot, man. Maybe this is the Bo Nix to Courtland Sutton skinny stack for all the money.
Yeah, I mean it certainly makes sense.
All right.
Would you do that in a dog bowl?
What if I told you I've already done it?
Okay. There's an answer.
And hang on, what if I told you I've been sniped on it also?
That's funny.
Yeah, Nez.
You think it would be undrafted?
Oh, yeah, Nez is also out there. So Nez, if you're watching this, I see your sick ass. You're just as demented as I am playing Courtland Sutton and Bo Nix. Seek help, my friend. I'll see you in therapy because I'm going to be there with you. That's the joke. All right. One other guy that I wanted to get to on this chart was Chris Godwin. I mean, I heard people saying like, oh, the Chris Godwin, he's running so hot on touchdowns. And he was. He had at least one touchdown through the first 3 weeks of the season. Finally goes without a touchdown. But my God, is his role not the most consistent thing in the league? Here's his target lines through the first 4 weeks. 8, 8, 9, 9. Like, I mean, do we just expect this going forward from Chris Godwin? It kind of feels like the old Chris Godwin role that we had prior to last season.
Right. I think that just speaks to a very kind of concentrated offense between him and Evans, which makes sense.
All right, that was all Chris Godwin. Moving on to a slightly less fun guy. Are you worried about Garrett Wilson?
Did you hear the press conference comment he made this week or recently? He said, "Oh, when I watch other teams, they like mix it up a bit. It'd be nice if we could do that too."
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, the vibes are starting to be bad. Oh no!
So that's a pretty bad vibes comment. Yeah, like maybe that's something where we we load up the route tree for Garrett Wilson, and maybe that's super gross.
Oh God, man, I'm starting to be worried. The stupid Alan Lazard stuff just does not seem to be stopping. Like, I don't know. I've heard people say like, oh, there's no way they can keep doing the Alan Lazard thing all season. I'm worried they might just do the Alan Lazard thing all season.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at the route tree thing. It's certainly not as bad as what you call it.
The Shane Waldron abomination that I showed you.
Yeah.
Earlier.
So week one it actually looks pretty good. Like it's pretty varied. But then by week 4, this site is hard to use. Or maybe I'm just a boomer. By week 3? Oh, they only pick one. If you don't pay for it, they only pick one player a week on each team. That's why it's hard to see. But by week 2, it's just like a couple of slants and go routes.
Yeah, I was like, I wasn't the president of the I'm Not Worried About Garrett Wilson fan club, but I was a card-carrying member. And I know, you know what it really is? I'm letting this throw out the tape game get to me more than I probably should. I'm having trouble swearing it.
How many targets a game do you think Garrett Wilson is getting?
I think it's like a little north of it's like 7 and change, right?
8.5.
8.5. Okay.
So we just talked about the Chris Godwin target profile, right, where it's like 9, 9, 9. So 8.5 on like a team where I'm pretty sure their like pass rate over expected hasn't been like, their pass rate has not been high. They're like, so their pass rate over expected. Okay, so it's 2%, 65% pass rate. So like 8.5 target rate or targets per game. To me, it's like you want to be talking about more than, oh, my first round pick gets 8.5 targets a game. But like there's probably something there where this can still work out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
The Jets need Garrett Wilson. Like that offense needs Garrett Wilson to go. So like it's not going to be like, okay, well, this guy made the bad comment, and so we're going to get him out of here. It's like, okay, how do we make this guy happy and make the offense go vroom?
Yeah, I mean, all hope is not lost for me on Garrett Wilson. I'm starting to get a little worried. It probably the week 4 like throw the tape out game is probably contributing too much to that worry, because it truly was an atrocious game. But yeah, I would love to see something soon to just make me feel a little better. But moving on to someone near Garrett Wilson on the chart, but I feel like is in a really positive spot. You also had a pretty good call on just this offense as a whole. You mentioned that the Bengals, and Joe Burrow were good regression candidates a week ago, and of course that was a good spot. Here we get the Ravens. You get T. Higgins here. He's coming in with pretty good weighted targets per route run. He actually has higher weighted targets per route run than his teammate Jamar Chase. Granted, he's played less games, so it's small sample stuff. I would expect that to normalize, but 10 targets last game, like
and then all the almost touchdowns.
Yeah,
that felt like they were very, very close to being touchdowns.
And you know what? I mean, this is the real analysis that people tune in for. But if you've been paying attention at all this season, you've noticed that this is the season of Sam Sherman pain. I mean, it's been pain for a lot of us, but poor Sam had like 20%. George Kittle, who was out, Sam's been posting this all over Twitter where he's been getting run over by the variance bus this year. And there could not be a more anti-Sam Sherman player than T. Higgins. So I feel like a T. Higgins eruption would just keep the trend rolling for Sam Sherman getting kicked in the teeth by variance. And so that's the thing that's the most compelling to me, is that the universe just out to get Sam Sherman so far this season. So maybe this is the T. Higgins spot.
The anti-Sam Sherman narrative. But like he's been running cold on touchdowns. So that feels like something where you're getting the underlying usage. We think it's a really good spot, and the team, it's a high team total, or it's a high game total, against a pass funnel, and then most people, they would think to primarily play it through Chase, so you'll get definitely cheaper T. Higgins. And I have to assume T. Higgins is like 100% drafted in Dog Bowl 12 team draft.
He is. He's 100% drafted, but he goes like in the 4th round, I believe. I can check.
So like that's something where if it hits the way it can hit with T. Higgins, like that's a gotta have guy.
Yeah, he is. He's going. The receiver that goes right after him is Michael Pittman. The receivers that go right before him are Terry McLaurin, Brian Thomas, DJ Moore, Dontayvion Wicks. So definitely interested in T. Higgins this week.
So I think those are the guys we wanted to touch on. In this
let's move to the next chart here.
No, that's not the next. I like when it. Okay, there we go. So we have Jayden Reed here. Obviously incredible. I don't think we have to spend too much time on him. We've already talked about Jordan Addison. Of him being like this RB2, and if Sam Darnold is going to continue to crush, then Jordan Addison is going to continue to crush. So like that's super interesting. Brian Thomas. So he's now 75 to 80% red share with the Jags. He's got this really strong underlying usage. And if the Jags are going to turn it around, it has to be true Brian Thomas, right?
Yeah, Brian Thomas looks like the way you want to play this. Not that Christian Kirk hasn't been getting decent targets. It's just that, like, Christian Kirk is known, and Brian Thomas, number one, he looks very good. And number two, he's a rookie. So we still have that unknowable upside for him where it's like, what could this guy actually be? And I think the only thing you know for certain about Brian Thomas is that he's worse than Malik Nabers. And so if that's the cap, if the cap is he can't be better than Malik Nabers, because we got to see a lot of those guys together in college, well, that still leaves a lot of meat on
a lot of headway.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in Brian Thomas. If you want to be playing Jags, because you get the Indy matchup this week, it kind of seems like this could be the sneaky get right spot for the Jag. This is the Trevor Lawrence come save your job type week. So maybe the Brian Thomas eruption spot. I definitely am interested in it. Let's see. We covered most of those guys. Really,
I guess Jalen Waddle is very concerning with this underlying usage.
It's super concerning, man. I mean, there's so much of it that's a little hard to parse with Miami because when you look at all their players, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, all of it looks concerning for one reason or another. I mean,
right.
A big part of it has to be the quarterback, right? You're missing Tua.
Tyreek's, even though his points are down, his usage is still up there.
Yeah. I think we saw in that first week with Tua, we saw Waddle go over 100 yards. He's getting,
right. That's fair.
But he also did the classic Jalen Waddle thing where he left the game for injury halfway through. So it's a little weird. I'm pretty much all the way off Jalen Waddle until you get Tua back. It's really hard with Tyreek and Achane because you don't want to play him. It just seems so bad. But they're both players where individually the talent level is so high that it's any given play, all that it takes for these guys to have an 80-yard touchdown is for one guy in the wrong spot on the defense to fall down. You need one defender to either be in the wrong or to fall down, and it's an 80-yard touchdown.
And so the other thing with Tyreek is, so his usage is still up there because he's still getting the deep shots, because he's Tyreek. Whereas I think Waddle's worked a lot more of the intermediate stuff, and the quarterbacks right now have just been incapable of working the intermediate. So maybe that's the discrepancy that you're kind of hitting on there.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's too much else here.
Last super quick note. We can get to the last chart. Keenan Allen. We talked about the Bears being hard to know when to start him, but Keenan Allen with the weighted targets per route run that he's getting, like you said, you're just basically playing for will I get the magical Chicago 50 passing attempts game? It's so hard to figure out when that's going to come because normally I would say, when are they going to be big underdogs? When are they going to be against an opponent that's really just going to force them to have no option but to pass? But I'm not even confident that they would do it there. Shane Waldron coming out and intentionally running the ball more and throwing, a league low number of times this week after his players confronted him and said, hey, we need to be more aggressive. We need to do more. And then he goes and turns around and does the exact opposite. It's a bad at his job thing and also an ego thing, it seems like. So it's so hard to predict when you have people that his decisions aren't, who knows what leads him to make the decisions that he makes. So it's just impossible to guess when it's going to happen. which I guess
Right.
also means that it's probably hard for your opponents to guess when it's going to happen as well. So Keenan will probably perpetually be a low-owned play. It might just be like if you're playing a GPP format contest, you take your Keenan Allen medicine every week. Like this last week, I think he was sub 1% owned, and I sprinkled it in some entries coming off the injury. Not a ton. I think I had like 3 or 5%, but it's like that's enough when no one else is playing him. So for me personally, I'm probably going to do the take my Keenan Allen or Bears pass catcher, Colt Kmet medicine every week kind of thing. And it's just a small amount. I'll light a very small amount of money on fire every week chasing that.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Okay. We can go to the last chart now.
I think my internet, I had a Korean internet outage.
Yeah, I think you may need to re-share your screen because we're still on the 70 to 85% chart.
Oh no. Alright, present, share screen. Good catch, thank you.
Okay, we're almost across the finish line here.
And so one thing that I thought was interesting, so he didn't have the route share to make this chart, but Troy Franklin popped in my kind of dashboard thing as somebody who's getting like a really he's getting air yards, he's getting a high targets per run, he's getting a variation between deep, medium, short targets, and so it hasn't hit yet, so they haven't been able to make it work. But I think that's super interesting for Franklin, and hopefully that kind of develops, and our bags are okay.
So, do you think it's too gross to play Troy Franklin this week?
It probably is too gross, isn't it?
Yeah, I want it.
Like,
I
think
really
in
want it.
Like a large field GPP, and you're looking for like the min price guy to hit, and you want to move up a chalk, like I don't think it's like just a bad play, but that's super contrarian.
So let's see. We've got Raiders Broncos is a 1:00 game. So here you go. Here's the GPP bro card earning play of the week. You start off your morning with some chalk, and then if your chalk fails, you're doing the late swap to Troy Franklin, the min price wide receiver for the 1:00 games, and you just jam in Troy Franklin. And you know what? Even better, leave your quarterback slot open so you can do the full Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, Courtland Sutton, full contrarian vomit stack, late swap.
There you go.
Behind.
There you go. Just needs to hit one bomb.
The last chart is not displaying, but there was really only one note I had for it. Dontayvion Wicks pops on the chart.
I never added it to the stage.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So Dontayvion Wicks is clearly popping here. He's going to be the worst kept secret in fantasy football this week. Like, I could not imagine a guy who's going to catch as much steam as Dontayvion Wicks is going to get.
People are dying for him to be a thing.
So listen here. I'm gonna. This is no cold water is being thrown on Dontayvion Wicks. I think he's a very solid play, but you know where no one is gonna want to go. No one's gonna want to go to Romeo Doubs this week because he is the boring version. You know, the boring play here. He's already been running the routes. Dontayvion Wicks is the one that's actually benefiting from the injury. I just think it's more a bet on, hey, I think the Packers are good. I think Jordan Love is good. I think the Rams are terrible. And I think any of these guys in any given week can score a touchdown. Like, it can happen. And so it's, for me, it's purely like, it's not a talent play. I'm not saying Dobbs is better than Wicks or better than Reed. I think both of them are probably, I think Reed is substantially better than both of the other guys. I think Wicks is probably better than Dobbs. But, I mean, Dobbs is, yes, I think Dobbs is probably going to come in pretty low owned. So anyway, Dobbs is the sneaky pivot off of the really, really chalk Wicks.
Okay. I think I'm back.
I think you're back as well. That was all I had though on this chart. Was there anyone else that you wanted to talk about, Drico?
All I said, I don't think it came true. Is Dobbs. You're just saying that Dobbs is like somewhere between a $1 and $5 ad in on waivers in FFPC and stuff.
Yeah, I'm more looking at Dobbs through the lens of like single week DFS, just because I think you're going to get so much Dontayvion Wick steam this week.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense, and we've seen some big, Dobbs games too. I think I saw AD Mitchell kind of pops here as somebody who's getting so he's at a 24% targets per run on a 21 ADOT on 40 to 50% routes. If it's a Flacco week, that could be pretty interesting. And there was also some pretty interesting comments where they were like, "Oh yeah, he looks fantastic in practice. Like he is killing it, and we got to convert that to games." So I think he's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. He's really interesting. I think he's the classic rookie wide receiver archetype that is going to come on in the second half of the season. We got to get the sneak preview with the Josh Downs injury, so he got to get some early playing time. And then you've got Alec Pierce, but like that's the hurdle for AD Mitchell getting on the field. And I think he'll be able to clear that halfway through the season. So, and the skill set meshes so nicely with Anthony Richardson. And if you don't have Anthony Richardson, I think Joe Flacco's an upgrade to the passing offense. So, yeah,
Right.
AD Mitchell is one where, if he's somehow on waivers in a main event or something, he's definitely worth a stash, right?
Yeah, for sure. Pretty strong waiver stash. I already have him in a bunch of leagues, still held the fate. But yeah, pretty strong waiver pickup. So I think that's it for us, right?
I think that's it. So thank you for making it through. We kept this one a little shorter, under 2.5 hours this week. So quite a short episode for us. Hope that you got something out of the analysis this week, and we will look forward to seeing you back here in week 5.
See you, everyone.